I thought I would talk about. So, yesterday I did a talk on will, and I talked a lot in that video on settling and compromising and how that's kind of associated with will, which is like forcing things to work that were never meant to work, forcing relationships that are built off of my fantasies of dating someone, my fantasies of being physically intimate with someone, my fantasies of building a life with this person when it's not anchored in reality, which is like the reality would be, what do I actually want in a partnership? And is this person what I want when I imagine what I want, or are they completely different from what I want? And I am settling and compromising for them because I don't think that better will come, right? And so I talk about that, and I talk about that in relationship with career and realizing that oftentimes when we're settling and compromising, where we're really coming from is fantasy. And so I want to talk about will, but I'm also going to talk about this for a little bit, um, because because our fantasies are built off of our unprocessed pain. And you can think about it like our unprocessed pain is what then creates a lot of unworthiness, a lot of I need to seek love because I feel so unlovable, a lot of I need to find and overcommit to people that accept me because I can't live in this level of unself-acceptance that I currently live at. And it leads us throwing ourselves at people. It leads us doing anything we can in order to be validated by another, and it puts us in situations that are not safe, whether that's sexual situation, whether that's people we date. And it also, just when we are unconsciously acting from that place, we are feeding our unworthiness, and whatever we are searching or seeking for will only lead you to more unworthiness. If you're seeking validation in sex, the act of having really casual sex with a bunch of people, different people, is reminding you your innocence, that you do not feel worthy enough to be picky or to value only sharing yourself with someone who would fully love, care for you, accept you, and who would be fully committed to you. And when we are willing to chase casual intimacy, we are chasing it as a way of, I get a hit of validation. When this person chooses to be my sexual partner, I get a hit of I'm worthy. I get a hit of I am enough, but it always slips through our fingertips, or it always fades, and the long-term consequences of acting from that place is I will feel more and more unworthy, because the people who are the most unworthy are the people who have the loosest boundaries. Right? If you truly valued your body and you truly valued having your deepest love in your life, you would not be dating people, you would not be having a bunch of casual sex, because you would say, I deserve more. It's the same with like whatever like things we do that are unhealthy. Like I went through a phase where I fasted a lot. And then after that, I put on a bunch of weight, because if you fast, you'll slow your metabolism down, especially if you do it extremely like I did. And your body, like I even got to a point where when I stopped my fast, my body was no longer telling me when I was full, because I had pushed the boundaries so far. And so I could eat and not feel full at all, and it took like a couple weeks for the feeling of fullness to come back, which I'm sure there's science on why that happens. I have no clue why that happens, but if you ever long-term fast, that's probably something you'll experience. And so I put on a bunch of weight. I probably put on like maybe like 20 to 30 pounds of just like of chub. And what got me to lose the weight of that, and what got me back into good physical shape, was I thought I deserve to feel better about myself. I deserve to feel attractive. I deserve to be in good shape. And I don't feel that good about myself completely letting myself go. I don't feel that good about myself having so much fat on my body and so little muscle. And so I ended up working out a lot. I ended up working to out lifting weights for 2 hours every day and like relating to one of the things I realized is like if I like at one point I had a lot of fat on my belly and I realized that if I work out my belly like I would train my chest or train my hamstrings, like the parts of yourself that you train a lot are the parts of yourself that have the most muscle and the least amount of fat. And so that's how I kind of lost the weight, just as like a little segue. But what got me over the hump, what got me motivated to lose the weight was the worth and value I had before I ever went into fasting, before I put on the weight in the first place, and I knew what it was like to feel good in my body, to feel like I was attractive, to feel like I was taking good care of myself, to feel like I was in good physical shape, and I desired to get back to that point. And so, whatever we're exploring, we're not a lost cause, especially if we are just exploring what is it like to have casual relationships. And I definitely had a perspective for quite a while of where I didn't, and I didn't really act on it. And whether we act on it or don't act on it, there's no shame. And whatever we're exploring, we are exploring it to then be able to guide the next generation, whether that's kids, whether that's younger siblings, whether that's a bigger audience. Whatever we explored, we and realized didn't work is what we then are able to share and pass down to younger generations to help them through the challenges and tribulations of this world and this life a lot easier. And so there's no shame on what you explore. But if you are having loose boundaries, your loose boundaries are reaffirming, your loose sexual boundaries are reaffirming that you don't have worth and value, because people that have worth and value value who they would share physical intimacy with and would only want to share physical intimacy with someone who was worth it, with someone who they took the time to get to know, who's like, this person is safe, fully accepts me, fully understands me. This person, and it's not someone I'm just comfortable with, but I also feel attracted to them. I feel passionate about spending time with them, and they're one of the most amazing people I've ever met. And that's high standards, and how we get to high standards is having good worth and having good value. And this is something I wanted to talk about, which I thought was I was going to talk about at a later time in the talk, but we'll talk about it now, is like pornography and what you learn about watching pornography, which I did for quite a while, all through adolescence and in and out of college, maybe, and even like a little after college as well. Is like what you learn about pornography is that they have very loose sexual boundaries, right? And are people who are porn stars or porn actors, are they illumined tantric masters, or are they some of the most unconscious, unworthy people you will meet? And I would say they're some of the most unconscious and worthy people out there, and they are chasing physical intimacy because of the validation, the hits of validation they get that ends up eventually leaving your body more used, more taken advantage of, more exhausted, more devoured, more broken than it does reaffirming your worth, value, and well-being if you look at that pattern long term. And if you ever followed people who are in porn, they always look a lot older after being a couple years in the industry than they did when they started out. And another thing to look at is like, okay, that's an example. Who else uses like use has really loose sexual boundaries? And I would say another example we see is like P. Diddy. And I don't really know a lot about that case, but I do know that he was very into to sex, into orgies and all of that. And is P. Diddy someone that standed for the health and well-being of a lot of people, or did he hurt the crap out of a ton of people? And if he was so into loose boundaries and loose sexual boundaries, maybe it was because it was feeding his patterns of hurt and harm that he was addicted to, and that's what kept him acting that out rather than it being some type of sexual freedom or some type of I'm reclaiming my sexual power, right? That's what people will say, but it's not really freedom for your soul. It's freedom for your egoic patterns. It's freedom for the parts of yourself that were hurt as children that then go, I just want to forget how deeply I was hurt for a bit. And we use people and we use transactional pleasure, which is I scratch your back, you scratch my back, which is what any casual physical hookup is based around, to help us forget the pain we don't want to face. But really, it is feeding our pain because our cravings and desires for sex come from our unconsciousness, and they also come a little bit from our hormones. And so we, like, you need to manage your hormones. You need to still like release your hormones and like masturbate, all of that. I'm not going to tell you not to do that, but I am going to tell you to have strong, healthy boundaries when it comes to physically intimate. And just because someone likes you doesn't mean you should give all of yourself to them, right? That's when we're coming from a place of desperation. That's when we're coming from a place of, oh, they like me. I don't even like myself. I don't even value myself, and this person values me. Well, here's all of me then. And that's how we end up in toxic relationships. That's how we end up in relationships that fall apart, break our heart, and we go, what the hell was I doing? That's how we end up receiving repetitive heartbreaks because we're relating to that person from fantasy of they must like me. And it's like our childhood dream of a prince, and we imagine our prince is just going to come and rescue us. And then we meet people in our life who maybe they have a lot of financial wealth, and maybe they're attractive, and we go, this must be my prince, right? It's programming. And we get programmed at a young age, and then we relate to life like that. And we go, this must be my prince. And so I have to make this work. Because if I don't make this work, then I lost my prince, I lost my soulmate, and then I'm going to be alone. But in truth, they were never your prince or soulmate because you have to become your own prince. You have to become your own princess, your own soulmate. And it's that level of I'm fully all that I desire by my willingness to love myself, my willingness to remind myself I'm beautiful and brilliant and amazing, and I am worthy of deep love. And if someone isn't showing me deep love, if someone doesn't feel safe, if someone I'm super comfortable with, but I don't feel passionate about, not my person. Not my person. And if can I be willing to hold people in friendship, because that is what's going to keep my heart the safest from receiving repetitive heartbreaks. And like I went to a movie to a play with a friend a couple weeks ago, and we're watching this play, and my friend is sobbing watching this play, and I really didn't feel that strong emotion about it at all. And I asked him afterwards, like, what, like, did you recently go through a breakup? And he goes, where do I start? Right? And that's what we learn is I am going to be the most broken when I'm not discerning. I'm going to be the most broken when I'm having sex with people who can't handle that level of intimacy or who even are not right for me, because anytime you're physically intimate with someone, it is forming an attachment to them. It is forming an attachment like you're in a long-term relationship, whether you desire that or not, and someone will get hurt because of it. And do we want to leave more heartbreak on this planet and more grief, or do we want to stand for I stood for healthy boundaries and I reminded people of their worth and value by holding those boundaries, and I allowed my wholeness and my love to erupt within me by my willingness to keep those boundaries and not to rush into something that would have been feeding my cravings and desires, which are what fuel my fantasies about life, fuel my delusions and my inability to see life properly, and really are feeding my unprocessed pain. Because we are meant to have desires, but you can think of your desires like an itch. And if you constantly are using someone to scratch that itch, one, you're using them. And two, when you scratch an itch, what happens? It becomes pussy. Maybe it starts to bleed. And did we cause more damage to our body? Or did we care for our body by scratching that itch? And if you looked at your itch and you looked at it bleeding, it probably would have been better just not to scratch it. And you can think about dating as like you are walking a path, and like let's say the center is your wholeness and a bunch of rings. Maybe there's like a ring every 2 meters or two, like just spaced, kind of like the sun, and then there's planets orbiting the sun further and further out. And your willingness to say no to people who aren't right for you, to say no to what feels like a fantasy of like, this person's so attractive and I can see they're addicted to chaos and drama, but I don't care. It would just be a fun experience to have, right? If we're leaning into those fantasies, it's essentially, instead of walking a straight path to the sun or the straight path to the wholeness, it's like we're stopping on one of those orbiting circles. And as long as we're in that fantasy with that person, dating them or having sex with them, we're now orbiting around our wholeness. And then we break up with them, and then we have to process the grief, the heartbreak or hurt to whatever degree we feel it, or just the loss of attachment that we had. And then we start walking a little bit, and then we start walking our straight line to the center of our wholeness again. And then we see another person who are like, I feel so safe and comfortable with this person, and they're not that physically attractive, but at least they won't hurt me like the person who is attractive but not nice. And we start walking another orbiting circle. And if you were just willing to say no to these people, you would just walk a straight line to the center of your own wholeness, of your own empowerment. But every person you give a yes to who is really just a fantasy, who is really someone who doesn't feel like long-term would work. And that's the way to know if I'm in fantasy or if I'm in reality, is long-term, does this seem like a feasible relationship, or am I ignoring the long-term and just trying to be in the moment? And we could be like, I'm just trying to be present. I don't want to think about the future. If you're committing to dating someone, committing to being physically intimate with someone, that's a long-term attachment. That's a long-term, that's making something long-term, whether we want to admit it or not. Even if we're like, I'm just going to see this person tonight, you are forming a stronger heart attachment to them. You are forming a stronger cord to them that will have implications long term. Every time we have sex with someone, we are swapping microbiome, we are swapping our fluids, we are swapping our heart energy with them, our light and our darkness, and you will be changed by it. And it's something we do with people who are fully committed, who are long-term relationships. It isn't meant to be short-term and casual. And yes, does that mean you're going to be celibate? Does that mean? But celibacy is really sobriety. Celibacy is sobriety from codependency. And when you meet the right person, you are like when you meet the right person, it is worth the celibacy you went through, because celibacy is really you just reclaiming your own inner power from your power of giving your power away to other people, right? When we're codependent, it's lost in the idea of I need this person. And when we're willing to have strong boundaries and to set boundaries and to say no, is when we get, is when we move beyond, is when we move beyond I need to what do I value, and what do I, on the deepest level, what would be a meaningful long-term partnership with me, and what does that look like? And you will start to, if you can live in that, you will start to immediately know who's not right for you. You will like hear someone's voice and you'll go, that frequency of their vocal cords isn't my partner. You will see someone on the street who's attractive, and you will watch how they move their body, and you'll go, that isn't how my partner would move, because you're now aligning yourself with your soul, and your soul will get you to your soulmate if that is aligned for you in this life. And we learn is the more I lean into being discerning, the more guidance I will be given to help me be discerning. And the more I ignore my boundaries and just have sex with whoever I want, the less guidance I'll be given on who's my right partnership. And it's how people get lost in codependency, because they're like, I just don't know. And because they're not honoring what's a healthy boundary from them, their guides aren't able to really help them see clearly, because one, they're not asking their guides for help seeing this person clearly, and two, their guides can't give them guidance if they're not holding that level of boundary. Right? If we're dating to any person that, if we're dating as if any person that likes me is my next partner, then the intuition is only going to be, strong. Your intuition is only going to be as strong as your boundaries. And if you have stronger boundaries, you'll have stronger intuition of who is right for you, who is not right for you. And this kind of leads into what I was thinking about talking about, which was will, which when we think about will, when it's out of alignment with the divine feminine, when it's out of alignment with intentionality, is overconsumption and trying to force things to work that were never meant to work, trying to force things to work that really don't feel right on the deepest level. Or really, we go, I'm unsure, I don't know. Because if you're doubting yourself in this relationship and you're like, I don't know if this is the right person, if it was the right person, you would know, right? If you met the right person, you would feel it physically, you would feel it energetically, you would see it. And if you're not seeing that, it's because they're not the right person. And you're like, well, what if I'm not the right person? You probably aren't the right person yet to attract the person to you who would be the right person. You're probably not the person who could handle the right person yet, which is why the universe is showing, why you're seeing one of the people on the, like the center circle, you're seeing one of the people on the outer parts of the circle rather than seeing the person at the center. And really, who we see at first, the center, is fully ourself, and we fully love and accept ourselves. And that energetic embodiment is then what attracts our soul partner, our soul family, because we are now able to handle deeper relationships. And that starts with self-love, that starts with affirming that we are worthy and enough, And then it moves into discernment of, I will not settle. I will not settle. I will not settle to feed a desire that is just going to strengthen my fantasies, just going to make my cravings worse. I'm not going to settle for a partner that is less than what I deserve, even if it means I'm alone for a longer period of time, or even if it means I never meet someone. Because what is hard is where the greatest growth is. When you are willing to allow your needs and your cravings to die, is when you will be transformed. And Luke desires to be powerful. Luke desires to take this life as deep as possible, because why wouldn't we want to be powerful beings who can wield power in the most merciful, loving, soft way ever? And we are going through psychic awakenings. We are going through energetic awakenings almost every day, every week currently, and the power that light workers have right now is not even going to be a taste of what we will have 10 to 20 years down the road by the level of transformation our body and DNA is going through. And so, if we really wish to be psychic masters, if we really wish to be able to do things that blow people's minds, we have to be willing to stand for, what do I value? And if I value my greatest empowerment, if I value my greatest self love, then I have to be willing to say no and to set healthy boundaries, because I'm protecting the worth and value of my body, rather than allowing other people to use my body to meet their own cravings, desires, and fantasies. And when we're thinking about will is really overconsumption, and it's forcing things to work that don't work. And one of the ways, this is a silly example, but we'll switch off relationships for a little bit. One of the ways that we see will played out in the world that is out of alignment with the divine feminine, out of alignment with long-term consequences, is like bodybuilding. And I wrote about this in like 2 videos ago in the description. I don't know what's going on about bodybuilding examples, but it does really work for Will. So we'll talk about it a little. Is like bodybuilding, what are you doing? Like you're overeating, you're eating like 5,000, or like overeating what the amount of food your body actually needs, overworking out as a way of becoming strong, as a way of putting on a bunch of muscle. And when we realize is I can accomplish a lot even out of alignment with the divinity, with the balance between the masculine and feminine. When I'm fully striving and achieving, I can accomplish a lot, but it has long-term effects and side effects. Like in bodybuilding, when you're doing that, it will break down your body quicker than if you didn't live your life like that. And you will be really strong. And if you got hit by a bus, you probably would take it better than an ordinary human. You would take it better than an ordinary human. But just on the other side of it, you're like the testosterone you take, if you're using that to recover, the calories you're eating every day will mean you will have a shorter life. Will break down your body from over having to digest food, from over having to build muscle long term. And like I am into working out. I have a couple injuries. I haven't been working out that much lately, but uh still try and get a little movement in every day, but like Pilates and stuff. But I had a personal trainer that when in high school, and he was like an ex-bodybuilder, and he was taking testosterone, and he became sterile from it. And like that's the and like a lot of times there's like side effects to like all the chemicals we put into our body trying to build muscle. And I've never taken testosterone, but it's obvious when you look at Will and you look at, is this aligned with giving my body full time to digest, full time to build muscle over time, or am I trying to surge all of that and quicken all of that? But you quicken all of that with long-term side effects, with like long-term, like you won't live as long. And it's when we look at will, we're always ignoring whether it's relationships, whether it's career. Like if we're pushing ourselves harder than what is healthy for an extended period of time and putting our body over extended and extended periods of stress, your body will break down. And things and that is the side effects of will is I can only push myself for so long before worse things start to happen, before my body starts to really show the side effects of how long I've pushed it without taking time to rest, without really giving it a break, without giving it time to recover. And will is always overconsumption. And we can look at what do I overconsume in my life and call it medicine or call it healthy when I'm really not honoring what my body needs. And for me, like my how my will showed up is like I would overdo light work and I would overdo angel visualizations to the point where I would feel blissed out of my skull, but I would have a hard time getting things done in my day, or I'd like be scrolling on my phone because I couldn't ground into my body from all the light I was receiving. And it's something I just woke out of like maybe a couple weeks ago or like a month or two ago of, oh, I'm having such, and it's something I was aware of, but I'm like, this is helpful. This is helping me. And, what I've been realizing is life is all about balance. And especially if we're already intuitive and open, we don't need so much to connect to the angelic realms and still how I still connect try to like pray every day and like I still do little practices, but I realize to listen to my body and listen to when does it feel like I'm starting to push my limit too far, and it's going to actually impact how I'm able to focus in my day. And like when I would overdo angel visualizations, I'd have a really hard time like focusing on specific tasks or not getting distracted because I was so ungrounded. Because when we're constantly connecting the light realms, it's like we're lifting out of our body. And if we do that too repetitively, we're going to have a harder time coming back into our body and then being productive and efficient in our day. And that's something I like realized. And so I've like cut back on doing that a lot and more. It's like now, how can I like it's heaven and earth. So it means I take care of my earthly responsibilities just as much as connecting to heaven and finding balance. And if I'm already intuitive and psychic and open, I probably need to actually prioritize the earth stuff even a little bit more than the spiritual practices. And it's still nice to set intentions and it's still nice to pray, but doing it where it's not taking away too much from my day, from my life. And when I'm doing it, I'm finding that it's actually helping me take well-being into my day and I'm productive and efficient rather than I feel super ungrounded. I can't focus on anything. And it almost feels painful in my head for how much light I just received, which was something I experienced, or I'm getting like hot flashes from all the light running through my system. And so I've been really learning to, if I consume something, if I consume a spiritual talk, if I consume a podcast, I got to give space to digest it. And I am not meant to just listen to people channel or listen to people take me to some angelic realm astrally by a guided meditation repetitively over and over again because I'll be all in heaven and no in earth, and then I won't be able to focus on the earth things I need to get done. And I want to close out with like something like I've been realizing about Will, which is like I would use those angel visualizations because I have an injured knee, injured shoulder, and my injured knee and injured shoulder, when I would do angel visualizations, if my knee was sore, if my shoulder was sore, it would take some of the pain away. And even I could feel like the meridians realigning in my body a little bit when I would do them. And so I thought, okay, I can continue to go to dance every week. I can continue to be a yoga teacher and teach yoga classes. And even though my body's getting tweaked, teaching yoga classes, like if I like in yoga, sometimes I would do something and after the class, like my knee, I have like a partially torn ACL, my knee would feel looser, which if you've ever torn your ACL, you realize that like from your shin to your on your knee, it just feels when it's partially torn, it just like your whole leg, the whole knee area just feels like it's looser. And I was like, I'll just over rest rather in angel visualizations, continue to be able to do everything I want to do and ignore how my injuries are being affected by me teaching yoga. And I realized that didn't work. And I did that for like 6 or 7 months or longer. And I realized my knee was starting to feel the worst it's ever felt. And I went, oh, okay, time to redirect. Time to, instead of trying to rest after yoga class, maybe I need to just rest from things that are aggravating my body. And so I stopped teaching yoga, which was hard, but I've taken a break and also like becoming a lot more aware of. I love to dance with people. I love to go to ecstatic dance. And I do that last to give my knee a little bit of a break. And when dancing with people, like my shoulder can get tweaked if they don't know. It's supposed to be a silent dance space too, so I'm not really able to tell them like my shoulder is injured a lot of times. And so giving my body more of a break where it's not getting aggravated every week and ignoring that. And that is an imbalance of will. That is us thinking I can overdo exercise and then overdo rest and overconsume both of those and I'll find balance in that. And in truth, it's like, no, you just need to address what's aggravating your injuries and they'll start to feel better. And with these injuries, one of the things that I've gone through is like with my injured knee, like both these injuries were an injury caused by will. Were caused by like I was running like one I was running down a trail in Colorado and instead of slowing down and being like this trail is gravelly and this probably isn't the most safe thing to do, like sprinting down the trail and then slipping and smashing my knee into a rock, which is like trying, right? When we're up too aligned with will, we're sprinting towards something. We're sprinting towards the end goal while ignoring the dangers of doing that, right? Speeding down the highway without ignoring it's raining outside and my car tires could slip out from under me and I could be in a lot of trouble. So ignoring our situation while trying to sprint towards the end, which usually leads to disaster or can lead to disaster, when we're doing it recklessly. And then my shoulder, how I injured it, I was stretching someone at Stretch Lab and I told them to press a little harder and I felt all my muscles seize up in my shoulder, but instead of backing off and dropping their leg and going, oh, sorry, like I stayed with it and I ignored the message of my body, even though it was like a quick moment and stuff like that happens, but I ignored the message of my body trying to force the stretch, the contraction I was doing with that client to get through it. And that's how I tore the muscles in my shoulder. And both happened because I was ignoring the messages of my body, ignoring the messages of the situation and moving too quickly and not enough mindfulness or thoughtfulness or listening to like the needs of that situation, listening to the needs of my body. And we learn that will is always trying to force things to happen, but when we're forcing things to happen is usually when bad things happen. When we're rushing is usually when we make mistakes. It's usually when we break glasses in our kitchen. It's usually when things go awry because we're trying to move too quickly and ignoring all the variables that could play out in that moment. And with my knee, one of the things that like happened is 3 months afterwards, it was starting to feel better. It was starting to be close to 90%. And I went and saw this orthopedic doctor. And I wanted to get a PT recommendation. I was explaining to them what happened. And they go, that sounds like it's your ACL. And I said, okay. And I'm like lightly lifting on my knee. My knee feels like so good. It feels like pretty close to being back to normal. And they're like, let's check it. And they then proceeded to check my ACL, like the test they do where they pull on the back of your shin with like 110% force, like they were trying to re-tear it. And instead of speaking up in that moment, I forced my way through it and didn't say anything. And then afterwards, my knee went from like feeling like 90 to 95% to like 60% and felt totally inflamed and torn worse than probably the original injury. And the doctor probably didn't know, but we realized that when we've experienced a lot of we always end up forcing our way to survive. And when have gone through a lot of that, and when we've tried to speak up and share our needs and it just led us to being more dominated, we then become adults who are too scared to speak up for ourselves, who are too scared to stand up for our needs, and it can lead us being hurt and harmed. And if we feel scared to address something with someone, we would always be better addressing it. And if we don't do it, it's okay. And if we get hurt because of it, like my knee got really badly hurt after that experience, I'm still alive. I'm still learning. I'm better because of it. And we learn that a lot of times the imbalance of will comes from it's a trauma response of all the times I had to force myself to and grit my teeth and get through traumatic environments or situations or experiences growing up. And when I spoke up for myself or my needs, and it led me to being more dominated and hurt, then becomes how I live as an adult, and I hide what I actually need because I think it's making me more safe when really in the long term it just leads me to being more hurt and dominated and usually more harm coming to my body. So I hope that helps. Thank you for listening. I hope you all have a great evening and I love you. Bye.